and welcome back to our series of interviews with Euros members around the world. It is my great pleasure to introduce you today to Christine Martin, Olympic Advisors, based in Barcelona, operating across Spain. Christine, I've been fortunate enough to have worked with you over many years. You've been on the Euro board, and it's always great to hear your take on our industry. So first of all, if I can I ask you how things are right now in Spain, and where are you at?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this introduction. And let me say that it has been my pleasure to work with you and Tad and the different boards during the time I was on the board, and especially to support Eura, because Eura has done a fantastic job and will continue doing that fantastic job in the future. So thank you very much for all the opportunities.
Thank you. And it's thanks to the contributions of the amazing members like you that, we can do this. So thank you. That's right.
Okay, as far as Spain is concerned, I can say that fantastic blue sky. So we have fantastic weather since Monday. Barcelona and Madrid, we managed to pass on to the phase 1 because we were on phase 0 before. So we are gradually acquiring a little bit of freedom. You have to know that the state of alarm is being extended now until the 7th of June. And every time there is a new extension, the government is planning on the next one. So they just came up today with trying to have a 6th extension that they say would be the last one for another 2 weeks, but they are having a slight problem having the political parties all agreeing on this and giving them the support that they need. So we'll see what happens, but for now, state of alarm until the 7th of June. 4 phases in total was what was programmed by the government. And what is a little bit strange is that those have been very different from depending on the regions, because obviously some regions were less affected, others more affected. And in bigger agglomerations like the major cities like Madrid and Barcelona, obviously they have had more cases, and you can only go into the next phase if you can guarantee that the hospitals will be able to take care of you, that there is less contagion and decreasing contagions, and obviously a certain number of deaths that you cannot surpass. So saying that, we have been confined now for such a long time that, just as an anecdote, I took my daughter yesterday to the dentist in the car, and she got car sick.
Oh my goodness.
She hadn't been in the car for so long.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy, but we have been following the rules, and as I said, the mood in general is, due to this weather, to the time of the year, due to the fact that people think we are going back to normal. The mood is pretty good. People are starting planning their summer. The government said recently that they were going to reopen Spain the 1st of July for tourists. So we hope it's going to be the case, because everything that has been discussed, they have had to change it. So we cannot take anything for sure. But yes, we have a lot of transferees that are already programming their arrival for the end of June and certainly for early July. So a lot of businesses are trying to start again. Others cannot, accept the limitations or restrictions that are being imposed on them. And so we have extreme cases of luxury hotels that have already said they're not going to open until December of 2020, because for them it's not sustainable. So it's going to be interesting after the summer period, let's say, when we're back in September, see a little bit what happens. In September, in theory, we are supposed to have the school reopening. There again, we hope that's going to be the case. But there is no guarantee this is going to happen. So a lot of planning, but still a lot of uncertainty in terms of this timing.
I mean, it's very interesting that you. I mean, Spain, is needing to race back to normal in terms of tourism, and yet, like you said, even though the government is planning for that for the beginning of July, a lot of the hotels you're saying are saying it's just not worth our while. The restrictions
Yeah,
would be too great. Wow.
exactly. And for example, they're talking about opening uh, beaches in general by end of June. They didn't establish a date. I mean, yes, they talked about 22nd of June, but we don't know, that could change. But nobody knows exactly what the rules are going to be like. So they're leaving the municipalities actually to decide how they want, what protocol they want to establish. So the only thing they have said for sure, it's going to be free, but there may be different times for different people. Distancing has got to be kept, and so we're learning every day different things. But yes, we are obliged, for example, to wear a mask, and
Oh,
that's mandatory. Yes, wherever you cannot keep distancing, you need to wear a mask. Actually, I must say, it's a good thing because at least people respect that. And for now, and it's something out of all the precautions you need to take. Yeah.
I mean, it is, the lockdown in Spain was immediate and it was very severe.
Yes.
I mean, I think, we're talking about still being in full lockdown, but I think we're in like the equivalent of your phase 2.
Probably, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the relief for you all, just to be able to get outside must be profound.
It is. I must say that the first day in Barcelona, we just saw like friends that met in the street and all of that, and they couldn't help it, but they started hugging, not kissing, but hugging.
Okay. Yeah.
With the mask on.
Yes.
So it's a culture, and people are, generally speaking, warm, and the their instinct was just to react like that. It was interesting to see. But so we still have to be very much aware that there is a risk, and we just have to behave as much as possible. For young people, it's harder, I think. They have started now going to private homes, so fine, but obviously the risk becomes higher. But we can't be confined all our lives, so.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, it is this whole process is the most enormous exercise in risk management, and how different governments are managing risks in different ways. I mean, we were just saying before we were recording that I just had a blast through from a member in Geneva, and Switzerland is literally open for business again. Airports are opening, but I mean, this is given that the lockdown was so hard, and that the release is being phased in very gradually across the 4 phases. That ambitious 1st of July is opening back up. That must seem, on the one hand, it's like, oh, great, we're racing towards it. But on the other hand, that's ambitious.
It's very ambitious, and it's political, and just because the economy needs it so badly. I mean, people were complaining that this confinement was too long, was too strict. Some prioritize the economy, others prioritize health, and to get the combination of the two, I think Spain just simply couldn't afford, especially after Greece, Italy, etc., saying that they would be open for tourism in summer. I mean, Spain couldn't stay behind and said they wouldn't be. But for now, I know that in certain summer, on the islands, for example, the reservations are not coming. So
right.
So not for now. I mean, I guess they will come, but more at the last minute. And I think that some people may want to wait and gradually see how everything develops for now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, again, coming out of this, it's really interesting how, I've all the way through this, I thought, I'm at very low risk. Well, apart from the fact it turned out that men in their 50s actually were quite high risk. And yet, as we start to open up, and as I start to have conversations with, with our colleagues, with our friends, people are reluctant to start restarting normal life. There's this background fear. But I mean, I guess at least this way with Spain, the domestic tourism, people can go to their summer homes, their summer places.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, this is
Yeah.
the interesting thing because they're restricting us right now to a sanitary region, like they call it. So in Barcelona, we're limited to Barcelona for now until we start going on to phase two. In theory, it's going to be in 2 weeks' time, but except that our phase one can be extended by another week or 2 weeks, depending on the results. Um, so basically, people don't expect to be able to go up to the Costa Brava from Barcelona, for you who knows where the Costa Brava is, etc., until basically the end of June, because the restrictions could still be there by then.
Yeah. So listen, during this very extensive lockdown, how have your teams been coping? Are they okay?
Yes, I would say very interestingly for us, we have been working with remote teams for over 7 years now. So the huge difference is this exceptional situation. It's not the fact of working remotely because we have done that. I mean, this is common practice for us. But the exceptional situation, yes, has made us not just having, I would say, almost daily individual contacts to follow the files with everybody, but also organize and establish group calls. And those group calls, the intention was more for you know, so we could work together the processes we were going to establish in the future and listen to everybody because everybody had questions, everybody was had this uncertainty that they had to talk about, and that collective work was critical. So the listening and the collective work was very, very critical. um, Also, since we started our digital transformation in the autumn of 2018, we had already planned to find a better office space for us. So we decided already to take offices in Madrid and Barcelona in a co-working space that would enable us to have training meetings, team meetings, networking, and we're delighted. And that was planned already before the COVID-19. So we were already moving in that direction.
That's
And that's what I can say. So the team is fine now. They're obviously looking forward to being able to carry on with with the working life, and it has been a bit difficult in the beginning when you couldn't give any information whatsoever to the transferee, and yet all we could do was to say we're here. As soon as we hear anything, we would give updates as often as we could through our blogs and directly to the clients, the transferees, keeping in touch. But that was a little bit frustrating. Now we seem to have a plan. Now we seem to see things ahead of us, and so um, hopefully we'll still be back out there to help them.
I mean, yeah, it's so we were talking before the recording. I mean, I know you've kept in great contact and you're a very collaborative manager anyway. As a leader, you've always sought, I know that from your teams. When things start back up, which obviously, you said you've got work sitting on hold.
Right.
What are the kind of processes that you're developing to implement as startup begins?
Okay. We think we've got to play safe for the client, the transferee, but also for our teams. And we are working on different protocols for different situations, but that we intend to apply until the end of 2020. Obviously, things can change at any time because we're all very flexible and more now than ever. But we have thought out a process whereby we would be in direct contact with the transferee in a safe place. And we could then communicate, be face to face, but then the visits would be carried out in a different way than they have been so far. So we feel the transportation has got to be an individual transportation. Our consultants will go and visit the properties that will be offered. Everything will be more directed towards exactly what the transferee wants. There will be less of an orientation as such, but we will be make sure the transferee has all the information he needs so that he can then do the visit himself, and things can be commented to him at the time he's making the visit to the apartment by himself, but on the call with our consultants that would have seen the place, would have sent the video to him. And, it's as good of a result at the end of the day as if you have an accompanied visit. So then just obviously having a second face-to-face meeting with the transferee to make sure that he's happy with what he has seen, that he's ready to make a decision, and that he understands the next step. So that's a little bit how it's programmed, and with some versions to give a choice also to the transferee. So he doesn't necessarily feel obliged, but we're going to make sure he understands it's for everybody's safety.
For sure, and I mean that is absolutely paramount. It was interesting you were saying to me just before we started recording that when your consultants are making these videos, they're not making the "wow, welcome to this fabulous apartment in Barcelona." These are real videos, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point, because that's our added value. And there could be a real estate agent involved, but we are there to tell them the good and the bad of each place, and for them to make up their mind where they want to compromise. And I think this is critical, and maybe that's going to be very helpful anyway in the future. So I think we're not necessarily going to go back to the visits the way we did them before. I believe that things will be different. I'm not saying that what we're going to implement now will stay forever, but that there will be some kind of combination, and taking the best of before and the best of now to move forward.
It's very interesting. I mean, when literally overnight, 2 weeks ago in the United Kingdom, the real estate business was allowed to restart, and it was announced on 8 o'clock on the Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning all of our Euro members were being phoned up saying, oh, can I go and look at properties now? And of course, the interesting thing about what you've described is, the relocation companies, the relocation providers are all looking at this from a very risk managed perspective. Let's minimize the risk as best we can, make this as safe as possible for everybody. And I'm not saying this to be critical of real estate, but here, there in the UK, there was a very big desire to get back to turnover very quickly within that sector. It wasn't the cautious advisory approach that our industry takes to this kind of thing. So it's very interesting.
I think this is critical, and the real estate agencies are in a completely different business than we are.
Yes.
So they are selling or renting a product. We are working with a person, and supporting a person. So it's one has nothing to do with the other, frankly, as I see it, as I've always seen it, and will always continue seeing it that way. Yes. What else can I say? I think we try to. I think this whole exercise that we're doing is also a very good exercise for the teams. We were talking about the teams earlier, because we need to change our mindset. I am a strong believer that nothing is going to be again the way it used to be before. And I think unless if we wouldn't have had that rupture, nobody would have really changed much. Or the change would be much harder and would take much longer. So I think this is a good opportunity. And we were trying to, in our own small company, be innovative as much as we can. I have a fantastic, dedicated person uh, to making this change, and very successfully. And frankly, we've learned a lot. We have adapted new methods, new management tools, um, agility and design thinking is the most modern terms, at least for me, and very interesting to understand how they work. And we have also started then podcast and interviewing um, executives from around the world, and just to see, listening to them essentially, and seeing how they embrace this change and this uncertainty. And I think that's going to be a lot of very, very interesting information.
That's fascinating, and I would love to be able to share that through the Euros platforms. That would be really, really awesome. I mean, and are you getting, that's really interesting, in the conversations that you've had so far, are you getting like many, many different approaches, or are you seeing any trends yet?
Well,
Is it too
I
early?
wouldn't talk, I wouldn't talk about a trend because everybody so far, I mean, I think we've had 4 interviews so far. We have 2, 3 more planned next week, and so on a weekly basis. But remember, I mean, we are basically interviewing not people exclusively from our industry. Actually, we haven't started with our industry yet, um, but with executives that have been expats. So for us, it's important to hear the experience they have had as an expat, but then also how they are planning on leading their teams in this time of change.
Yeah.
And we are learning a lot. You know, they all have, it's not a trend, but I think they all have a similar attitude towards, you know, this change of mindset, this working in a different way, approaching teams in a different way. And that's, yes, is a common denominator for now. But I'll be very happy to share, and we'll make sure you are fully involved and
That's
informed.
great, because that is very, very fascinating. And I mean, one thing that we want to try and do as an organisation coming up is through, obviously through the Euro members network, is to try and figure out what changes are likely. I mean, from the people I've been speaking to so far, I know one thing is the whole notion of risk management has always been a huge priority within global
Yeah,
mobility management.
yeah,
But now it's more like, if somebody, for example, is more reluctant to accept an assignment, um, I think there will be things like policies which say, I will accept that assignment, but I have 100% my decision when I decide it ends. If I decide I want to go home, get repatriated at any point, is that something that can be incorporated into my contract? Because, that I think probably for people, I mean, you must have seen this, with your assignees who got stuck during
sure.
lockdown.
Yeah,
And certainly, people I spoke to said we had, people who literally left the day before, forgot to leave their keys with the real estate, and
yeah,
therefore all
yeah.
their stuff is in. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what trends appear.
I think definitely one thing all the executives we've talked to uh, require, and is going to require more and more, as I understand it, is the support for their family, for their partner. It's going to be now more critical than ever, and I don't think we can forget about that. And we definitely need to incorporate that within the services that we will be offering. It's going to be critical. As I said, we have families that are coming. They don't know whether the kids are going to start school in September. Maybe one kid is in one school and that school may open or may have the facilities to do online courses, but not another one. Um, they are going to be very, very distraught by it. And so far, the interviews we have done, not everybody has had good relocations. And one of them in particular has complained about the fact that there wasn't a support, there was a lack of details in the service delivery. And you cannot have a standard package. and include all that care, all that extra time. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, we cannot give everything that that expat was expecting or needed or was sold he would be receiving. So it's going to be very interesting in the future. I think we need to change our mindset and understand, listen and understand better their needs. Their needs are going to be different, unquestionably.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard enough to be going through this in your own home, in your own country, in your own city,
Exactly.
but doing that in a new place. I mean, several people that I've spoken to recently have said, actually the role of the DSP has probably never been more critical than it's going to be in the next
I agree.
few
I
years.
agree. Because nobody has our role, and that role, they all say how critical it is.
Mhm.
So when they have had a good experience, that has changed their lives as of day one. If they've had a bad experience, that has made their life miserable during the whole time they were relocated,
Yeah.
which is terrible
Yeah.
because it has tremendous consequences.
It really, really does. I mean, we've got in the cultural theory and intelligence module, just to give a plug for the MIN program, which is free. We do look at the psychological impact of this process, and I mean, we've talked about this for a decade or more, you and I, in board meetings, and never more has it been, more impactful than it is now.
Yeah.
So, I would love to catch up with you again in July, find out what's going on.
If I go to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. I'll meet you on the beach.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just that.
I let you know one that won't be too crowded.
Absolutely. It's been really, really great to catch up with you, as it always is. We'll set up a follow-up for July. That would be fantastic. And in the meantime,
wonderful.
I wish you all the very best in the coming weeks, in phases going smoothly, and resumption of your very critical work. So Christine, thank you so much. We'll speak soon. Take care.
Thank
Stay
you
well.
so much, Dominique. Okay, take care. You too.